All right, folks, welcome back to another episode of the McKinney Podcast, where we celebrate what makes us unique by nature.
That's right.
And unique by nature is absolutely going to be the theme for this episode. The people demanded more Matt Rostami, or Mahdi Rostami Zada, or Zada. Is it Zada or Zada?
It's actually pronounced Mahdi.
Mahdi?
Mahdi.
Mahdi. Sorry.
No khe. It's a soft H, actually. Mahdi.
Mahdi.
And the reason I changed it to Matt is like every time I would go and pick up orders, I'd be like, yeah, I'm here to pick up for Mahdi. And they go back and they'd be like, there's no Matthew here.
Yeah.
I'm just like, after this happening 20 times, I'm just like, you know what? My name is Matt. And now it's like evolved, like my in-laws are Mexican, so they call me Mateo. So my name is just like always like evolving. But
you're a citizen of the world, man.
Yeah, I
you're
suppose
a
so.
multicultural.
Yeah.
He's global.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's not Mahdi, because like people try, and I'm like, it's Mahdi. If you're gonna try, it's Mahdi. But Matt and Rostami Zada is like, it's Persian, but the Zada prefix is like very common in Persian last name. So I just drop it, just Rostami. Just much easier for everyone.
Okay.
All right.
That's very considerate of you.
Yeah. Thank you. I do my best.
Yeah.
So, hailing in from...
Hold on.
Oh.
What are you doing jumping the gun like that?
Ready. Like, I'm hanging on to
You're
the details.
so enthusiastic.
I'm hanging on to the details.
Let the music come in first, would you? Okay.
And now, in continuing our podcasts featuring the panel of contestants for the mayor of McKinney.
The most interesting game show ever.
That's right. We have with us, hailing from the great Northeastern, as a matter of fact, he might have walked the very same streets of Scranton as someone else who just left political office. He had his time there at Rutgers.
That's right.
Right? He was at Rutgers, but he figured out that even with all of his education, all of his formal education, he learned he did not want to freeze.
That's right.
He did not want to freeze. So he traded the climes and conditions of the great Northeastern for very South Texas.
Sounds about right.
Very South Texas.
Very South Texas, like McAllen, Texas.
Okay.
Realized that maybe McAllen wasn't quite where he wanted to be, and he set his wagons northbound and landed in Frisco. We have with us today the venerable Dr. Matt Rostami.
Okay.
Welcome.
Thank you.
You know, you said that your in-laws was it Mexican?
Yes.
Okay, so you were down in McAllen, you picked up a souvenir before you came back north, right?
I actually met her here, believe it or not.
Okay.
Yeah, I met her in Dallas. She's a Dallas native, and that was impressive. You actually remembered all of that? He did that with no notes. That's pretty good, actually.
Well, ask me important things like my children's names or their birthdays, things like that. Shh, gone. But, little things for some odd reason, like Trivial Pursuit probably would have been,
I was
my
very,
major in
very
college if
with
I'd,
that.
gone to college. And,
So just so Allison doesn't bite my face off, the biography text said, I'm an eye surgeon running for McKinney mayor. Dr. Matt is succinct, he's direct, he's to the point. No time for fluff, let's get right to it, baby.
I mean, people don't want to read all this stuff anyway.
Yeah.
They just want to get to the point. And, I appreciate you guys bringing me on to the podcast. I was a little worried at first. James, you and I had some drama. But, thank you for bringing me on here.
Yeah.
A little bit. I'm surprised because, at first you're like, it's not a serious candidate. He's making a mockery of the process and all this stuff. And I can kind of see why you would think that.
Yeah.
I did say I'm not running or spending any money or raising any money. And I do a lot of like humor and comedy in the videos, which, I can understand like some people may just be like, whoa, what's going on here? But I promise you, I am a real candidate and I would like to sit here and have a discussion with you guys about it. So
Yeah.
I really appreciate you having me on.
The pattern of these episodes, it tends to start with a little friendly banter and then questions about the guest, the human, the guest, background and family and, well, how did you find yourself to this point in your life, career and whatnot. And then generally talk about someone's business and whatever else and, shoot the breeze, talk about what they love about McKinney. There's kind of a vibe to an episode. But with you and with the other three guys running for mayor, obviously there's more serious things to be discussing. And it's very interesting because by the time this episode is listened to or watched by anybody, the debate next Tuesday will have already happened.
Oh, okay, it's coming after.
We are, unfortunately, just for production schedule.
Yeah.
I mean, it would be really nice if we could have had all 4 episodes out before the debate, but all 4 of you guys are super busy. So, I mean, let me just clear the air and say, I love giving people something interesting to watch.
You are a podcaster.
I'm a podcaster, a content creator at heart. So the idea of not inviting you to the show never crossed my mind. Like you were getting an invite the whole time. Like the stupid Facebook drama is so ridiculous. And truth be told, I'll pull the curtain back a little bit. This is not about me; it's about you. But I'll just say explicitly, I get a little too serious sometimes when it comes to roles and authority and whatnot, of thinking that it's my job to protect the group or whatever. And my wife and several other people were like, bro, just chill. Like, you don't have to be the guardian of justice. Like, there's 41,000 people in that group. Just be an admin, make sure that scammers stay out, and make sure that people that are openly offensive, like name calling and attacking folks, there's no room for that. But I mean, I was totally out of line in calling you not a serious candidate. It's not my job to call you serious or not. The voters get that choice. It is the authority of the people.
Sure.
I
can see why you would think that too. Like, as I said, at first some of these people see the videos like he's not raising or spending money. I totally understand some people would feel that way. And that's why I decided it's important to come here and like share my ideas with you guys.
I love it. So before we get off to anything else, to you directly, man to man, I want to apologize for any sort of offensive things or any kind of name calling, because frankly I was just out of line. There's no reason for me to be talking to another grown man like that.
I don't get offended. The only thing that would bother me really is like when they take the post down. Like that really does bother me. And I don't mind the negative comments I get, because if you actually look at the post and I click on the reactions, you see like 20 comments, maybe like 15 are negative, 5 are supportive, but then you see the likes and there's like 20 likes. And I'm like, guys, comment, help me. Don't just like it, because there's like 20 likes. There's like 8 like laughing emojis. Granted, half of them are probably laughing at me because they don't like me. So you got to keep that in consideration.
The sarcastic haha. Like, have you noticed in like the last year and a half, 2 years, it used to be that laughing emoji was actually a laugh. And in the last, 18 months, 2 years, like that haha, it's so hard to decide, is this actually someone finds it funny, or is it the haha, you're an idiot? Kind of thing.
Half of them are going to be like that. So when I see that emoji, I'm like, half are probably haters. But when I see like the 20 of them that like them, like, guys, comment. Don't just like.
So, Fred, you had something there.
Well, it's like, I mean, we're already deep into the meat of things.
I know. I was gonna pull back because it's been a journey, Matt. Like we're not just waking up one morning and deciding, oh, I'm going to run for mayor. It's not like that at all.
That's right.
No, of
like
course.
you have had a lot of life experience that brought you to the chapter where we are now currently, where you're on Tuesday, you're going to be on stage.
Oh, that'll be interesting.
Vying for the role of mayor, which, by the way, packed house.
Sold out.
Every seat is going to be full.
No pressure, huh?
No.
But something tells me you thrive in pressure. You have MD after your name. You are an eye surgeon. People's vision, their life, their quality of life is literally in your hands on a daily basis. True. Something tells me you aren't bothered by pressure.
I think it's more just life experiences more than just MD. I mean, there's a lot of doctors I know. To be honest, they're not like really like social, or they really thrive in like debate performances or even like talking. Not that I do any good in debates either. I mean, I just like talk and I just speak it like straight. And a lot of times I will actually be detrimental to you in a debate if you're really trying to win a crowd over. But the way I look at it is that when you're going into like a debate like this, to be honest, most of these people don't represent the vast majority of people in McKinney. In fact, I would go a step further. I would say even the people who are going to be voting do not represent the vast majority of people who live here. Our turnout's like 10%.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that with a little bit of controversy I've created, we can maybe bump it up a little bit, for better or worse for me. We'll see, but it is very difficult. But so that's the thing, is like when you're going into these type of settings, you have to keep in mind, like when you speak it straight, it may not really resonate with the insiders who are really dealing with the management or the day-to-day things of the city.
Well, when we look at the numbers from last mayoral election, when George Fuller and Tom Meredith faced off as the two main candidates, the total number of votes cast for any candidate made up less than 20% of the eligible voters in McKinney. And golly, that is just a terrible, terrible thing. So if this is your clever way to drive voter turnout, I mean,
We'll see.
Good job, man.
We'll see. I mean, I've tried, but I think most people are just checked out. What do you guys think? Why do you think people don't vote in city versus presidential?
I think a lot of people are just like with the last mayoral race there. I think a lot of people just said, "Oh, one candidate already has in the bag. There's no sense in me turning up." And so I think that's a lot of it. A lot of people will look at the issues and the things, and they're like, I really could care less in either direction, so they just don't turn up for that.
I think it's a little bit deeper than that.
No,
and Matt, I'd love to get your take on this. I think the main reason is they just don't care because they don't understand exactly what that office dictates for their daily run-of-the-mill normal life. They don't realize what the mayor is directly responsible for, and not just mayor, city council, county commissioners, local governance, municipal and county. I don't think a lot of people realize how much influence those 7 people have, 5 if you count the county judge and the 4 commissioners. Between county and city, those 12 people have a tremendous amount of authority over the run-of-the-mill daily life, from building codes, city ordinances, to infrastructure, police, fire, roads, parks and recreation, what gets built and where it gets built. I don't think people realize how much those 12 people directly influence their life.
So it's probably safe to say that the people that are very vocal on McKinney Cares are probably the only people that are voting. Because they'll call them out left and right.
But the thing you got to
comes after
if
that.
you look at this, and Matt, you've probably seen it as much reading the comments as you do. There is a very, very small percentage of citizens of McKinney that make up the total number of posts and comments.
100%.
You'll see a couple of dozen people are just living in the comment section.
I'm living rent-free in their heads, but yeah.
You really are.
Yeah.
So I want to pull it back and get us a little bit of chronology. You're up in the Northeast. You go to Rutgers. It's New Jersey, right?
Yes, New Jersey. Yeah.
Cool. Okay. And you go to McAllen, and you find yourself back in North Texas. What drove you up here? Did you go to med school in the Northeast?
Yeah, I went to med school in Scranton, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
It's the Geisinger Medical College.
Okay.
And then after that, I did 1 year of intern year in Howard University in D.C. You have to do that before you do ophthalmology. And then I did my 3 years of ophthalmology residency, eye surgery in Cleveland, Ohio.
Okay.
And I moved down to McAllen to do 2 years of retina surgery fellowship to get specialized in that.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and then after that, I decided that I like Texas. I don't like the cold, and I want to stay here. So I just looked around most of the big metroplexes and see which suburb didn't have my specialty. And Frisco didn't have a retina surgeon. So at the time, I'm like, okay, I'm just going to go here. It's a great place. It's growing and all that stuff. And believe it or not, I had looked at Garland and I looked at Frisco, and I learned more about the area. I'm like, yeah, Garland's on the down. Like, forget that. So no offense to anyone from Garland.
I listen to the McKinney podcast, so
yeah.
We're not going to argue with you.
Okay, all right, yeah. So I was like, Frisco it is. So that's why I moved up there.
The nickname for your city is the G Spot, and you literally call when people call your city the G Spot. I was that very questionable judgment coming out of Garland, Texas.
I didn't know that at the time, but it would have been a definitely no if I knew that right away.
Yeah,
but that's how I ended up in Frisco.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dude, I love the entrepreneurial spirit, market analysis, spot on. That makes a lot of sense.
That worked
Very
out
cool.
really, really well.
Yeah. So how personal life, wife, kid, what's the family situation? Talk about that.
So my wife and I, we both live here, and she's from Grand Prairie area. She's actually from the DFW area. She grew up most of her life here, and she is she's an intelligence officer in the Army. She was just.
Are you allowed to share that?
Yes, but I can't tell you anymore, or else I have to kill you both right here. So
I prefer to live today, Fred. Please stop asking questions.
So that's all you guys get. As
the
far
guys
as
in the sunglasses are coming down the hallway right now.
Yeah. But yeah, that's what she does, and we've been married for 4 years. We've been together for 4 years, and we got married last year.
Oh,
Awesome.
Congratulations!
Congratulations.
So you got little Matt's.
We're working on it.
All right,
Working
good for
on it,
you.
yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah.
All right, so now I'm curious about the whole McAllen thing. Was that the only place? I mean, how did you choose McAllen, or that was the only spot?
That's about the last place in the country I would want to do a fellowship.
No shade to McAllen, but McAllen.
Immediately, when I applied for retina fellowship, I was like, I am not applying to any cold places.
Okay.
I made a hard line after 3 years in Cleveland. Like, I don't care. So all the Northeast was out, all the Midwest was out, like most of like the what you call it, like Seattle.
So were you born and raised in the North? With a name like the last name you have, your family's not from here.
No. My I was born in South Carolina, Charleston. My dad is from Iran. My mom is black. So I'm a mix. But that's where we grew up. And then I grew up from 1 to 4 in South Carolina.
Okay.
And my dad took us to Iran. I lived in Tehran for 6 years. I went to school there.
I was wondering.
Yeah, I went to school there till 4th grade. And, I thought I was pretty good at English. But then they brought me back here and I had to be put in ESL. But then I got rehabilitated within a year. I was back in Gen Pop, But
Gen Pop.
I mean the rest of the school. Sorry, my bad.
I was like, where did you go to school? Rikers?
Jersey City.
No wonder. No one.
We had metal detectors in my school before 9/11. I was going through TSA before you guys were.
Wow.
Yeah, that's the type
It was one of those public schools.
It was one of those public schools. Yeah.
Wow.
But yeah, I moved around a lot, and but no, I did not want to be in the cold, so I applied only to hot places. And McAllen is actually very good for training because down there you get the worst pathology as far as the bad diabetes that detaches the eye, all the bleeding, all the wounds and stuff that you get. And they let you do a lot of stuff there, a lot of hands-on experience. Practicing medicine up here is very easy. As far as my specialty, people are pretty healthy when you compare it to South Texas. So like a lot of the surgical skills I got down in McAllen, I actually really don't need a lot of it up here. Once in a while, it comes in if it's too complicated or doctors can't deal with it, I'll take care of it. But for the most part, I'm really glad I got difficult training. It just makes it easier doing regular job.
Mm-hmm. How about that?
Fred, any questions before we jump into a little bit more of the recent history?
Well, yeah, I'm just curious now that, you had all that, we'll call it very high pressure surgical training down in South Texas. Did you, and you've already, talked about the whole pressure thing and so forth of, like being on this campaign thing. At that time, were you like, doing retina surgery and thinking, one day I'm going to be mayor? Like something out of Back to the Future. Remember that scene with Goldie?
Something tells me that thought did not cross his mind at that point.
Not mayor in particular. I've always had interest in politics, not particularly in running, but I've been very involved since college with politics.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
I was inspired by Ron Paul when he first ran. And I remember watching. I'm a Middle Eastern Studies major. I did my pre-med requirements alongside of it. So that's
cool.
actually my major before I went to med school. So I was watching him in the Fox News debate to South Carolina. I'm like, man, this guy's foreign policy is right on. These wars in Iraq and Afghanistan are not good. I'm 18 at the time, so I'm listening to a politician. I'm like, yeah, this guy actually is just saying it what it is. And he's getting booed. He's getting trashed on the stage. Like they just hate him. And then like you fast forward now, the Republican Party you see has changed, and now we're moving more towards against the war. But ever since then, like since 18, I've always been interested in politics. And I got more into like reading about like more libertarian philosophy, more like John Locke, more like Murray Rothbard, more like, Austrian School of Economics. I've had a very deep interest in politics. But as far as like, am I going to run for mayor one day? I don't really think of it like that, But I'm sure it crossed my mind, maybe run for something. But it's really just like the ideas and the philosophy that really interest me.
Mm-hmm. So on that line of thinking, because mayor is not your first, not your second. It's your third political campaign.
Yes.
So when you're in Frisco, you're an eye surgeon. You have a good life. You have a serious girlfriend, a fiance, then a wife. And it was in 2022 was the Senate campaign, right?
Yes.
Against Angela Paxton, if my memory serves.
Yeah.
How did you make the decision to? Now's the time. You've got a medical practice. You've got so many things that are going on. How was it where you sat down and said, you know what, I'm going to run for Senate?
Yeah.
How did you get to that point?
That's a great question. When I started my practice, I was having a lot of issues with like just insurance companies. And some of them was my fault, just getting new and learning how to bill. But then as time would go on, I would realize like some of these claims are just playing games with us. And I reached out to Senator Paxton's office at the time to try to get help with the issue. And I wasn't really getting much of a response. So at that point, I decided that I'm just going to have to run against her. And it was a pretty contentious primary. She handily beat me. I mean, it's tough. She's the incumbent senator, the wife of the attorney general. I debated her 3 times. She's tough. She's tough and she's smart, And, after the election, we met and we talked. And, we decided to start working together. In fact, she's done a good job with introducing some bills in the Senate, bills I've worked on with her on the specific language to try to help our community when it comes to things like prior authorizations. In fact, she introduced a bill just now in the Senate, 1380, and she's putting it into South Health Committee, which, I encourage everyone to call Senator Colkhurst's office down in Victoria, Texas, to help Senator Paxton's bill get where it has to be. But to me, getting involved in that race, yes, I was trying to win. I'm trying to win all the races, But what's more important is the type of change I can bring. And, I work well with her now, and I appreciate the things that she's doing. And that's what I think politics really should be about. It's not like I have to be the senator, I have to be this, I have to be that. Some people are really into it just for that reason. But I'm more into it as like, yeah, if I win, it's great. But what are you running for? Are you just running to be the guy? If not, then I think you need to really reconsider.
Okay.
How about that?
Dude, that's just about a perfect answer.
No one ever
I
shares
told you this was going to be a
the
great
second
conversation.
half of the story because,
Why, what do you guys hear?
Well, we
don't
just see
hear
that-
anything.
Yeah, right. We just see that you go against her, and then she wins, and that's kind of
all
it.
we have are the facts
Yeah.
that you could observe
Gotcha.
from reading news articles and researching on Google.
That was a tough race for me because when I ran against her, I could feel like just the entire establishment on me.
Yeah.
Again, her husband's the Attorney General. Dan Patrick came up here twice raising money for her, attacking me. And I met Dan Patrick after the primary. I'm like, listen, I endorse Angela after. He's like, I really appreciate that. It's just politics. It's not personal, But I really felt like, and my second one, the Board of Education race, I ran for that one, but to be honest, I didn't really put as much of a serious effort. And then you can see some of the other candidates will say we didn't see Matt at any of the debates or the forums, and I had some personal stuff going on. But the first time I ran, I was very, very serious about it. And now when I'm running, I'm realizing I'm getting a lot of pressure and a lot of attacks. And I know a lot of it is a lot of provocation on my end with my videos, trying to get a response. But I've realized what's finally happening. I finally put it together, what's going on. The other two elections were within a Republican primary. So it's basically Republican on Republican violence, right?
Yeah.
But it's more like, that's what it is, right? But it's more
blue
like...
on blue, as
yeah,
they
blue
say.
on blue,
Or
red on red.
red on red,
Exactly.
as it is.
Yeah, so it's mostly about personalities and stuff like that. Me and Angela kind of really went into each other, right? But it really wasn't about policy issues, not too much, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
This election, the reason I'm getting attacked is because this is the first time the Democrats or the liberals get a chance to get their lick on me. So because before they didn't have to really worry about me, I got taken out in the primary. But this time it's just no, this guy can actually win. We need to get in on him. But it's good fun though. It's just a different type of pressure.
All right, so with that, you have some shock value in your video commercials, in your little snippets that you put out
Now,
there.
Fred, let's be fair to Matt. Some people might not consider joking about eating cats to be shock value.
Yeah, but for me,
In some cultures, in some parts of China, they do eat cats and dogs.
And dogs. Yeah.
I'm Filipino, and so
In South America too.
dogs.
I didn't know
dogs
about
are,
South America.
Dogs are a delicacy. Certain
know that
dogs.
either. Well,
Certain
I'm
dogs.
learning something.
I'm just saying that my dad would I would say, Dad, what about that? I was like, no, that dog has long hair. That's not very tasty. And I'm like, okay, Dad. So, but yes, you do have a lot of shock value. But the first time, I can't remember which. It was probably the no animal shelter thing. We're going to eat them. My first thought was, man, how offensive is that? But I like to consider everything, and it's not enough just to get a little tantalizing snippet. So I watched the rest of it, and I was like, okay, so he of course
joking.
you did point at your cat, and your cat ran away, which I thought was.
I mean, she heard I was going to be a leader and
Yeah.
go first, so she knew.
Perfectly timed.
Cats are jerks, man.
Yeah, they don't listen.
But when I look at that shock value thing, you did something that you got people to tune in.
Yeah.
You got people to tune in, and then you can actually deliver your message. And so, now for me, I don't have cable TV, so I like take in entertainment value wherever it is that I can, and you do provide a certain level of humor, shock and awe, but then I do live for the comments. A good
Well,
bowl of popcorn in the
it's a lot
comments.
of comments, yeah.
Is where it's going to be.
The thing about being a minority candidate and being someone who is seen as not likely to win the election, the voters obviously get their say. But when you look historically, the third person in a race has so much influence over the rhetoric and the conversation. I mean, I'm reminded as far back as Ross Perot in 1992. That was the first political election that I was paying attention to. I was 8 years old at the time and asking all those questions to my parents, presidential election and whatnot. Ross Perot never really had a chance of winning that election. It was always going to be either Clinton or Bush. But Perot changed the face of the entire election. Sure. Some of those conversations that Bush and Clinton were forced to have and policies that happened after those, Ross Perot had his fingerprints on Bill Clinton's presidency in ways that never would have happened if Ross Perot wasn't in there. So obviously the voters get their say. You may very well win the election. But regardless of whether you win it or not, you've already impacted the dialogue around the conversation of the office of mayor and the role that the mayor has in its entirety. It's a fascinating thing to see unfold.
Yeah, I mean, I try to, even within the humor, I try to incorporate some of the issues I have with the city. And a lot of it can be contentious. I'm sure you and I disagree on a lot of this stuff. But like some of the things I bring up, a lot of candidates don't want to talk about, Like some people, you ask them, like, what's your exact position on the airport? Or I ask them, what about CDC or EDC? Like, it's not about if you agree with me or not. It's more about, are we going to bring this up for the conversation? Should we do more RFP versus sealed bidding and all this stuff? And the problem is, doing these videos, it opens you up to a lot of scrutiny because people can just pick these things apart now. You can be like, okay, he said this, he said this, he said this. And it's like, yeah, I know it opens me up, but if I just do a generic video saying, I want to make McKinney a beautiful place where everyone can live and have their voices heard and we can all reach our full potential and live happily.
It's word salad.
Yeah, no one can pick that apart, but yeah, if I take a stand on something, first you have to defend it. You got to know what you're talking about. Two, you have to be ready for people to straw man you. Like, you just have to be ready for that. Yeah. And, that's why I like long podcast formats so you can actually talk to people. And one of my firm beliefs is, two reasonable people can have a disagreement. That's one of my firm beliefs. Two reasonable people can have a disagreement.
Yeah.
Okay, so with that, you have a key phrase: no progress.
No growth,
first, no progress.
Safety first, no growth, no progress, lower property tax. And when I say no growth and no progress, like a lot of people freak out, like this guy wants to take us back to the Stone Ages and stuff. My position on this is this: when I say no growth, my job as a government city official is not to promote the growth of the city. Now, a lot of people are like, whoa. And I'm like, yeah, fundamentally, I think my job as the role of the government is to keep the city safe, beautiful, and clean so jobs come here naturally. When I opened up my practice in Frisco, I didn't consult with the city council. I didn't meet with the mayor. I didn't ask any money from the city. I just looked at the demand, what it was there, and I came there and I did it. I feel the same way if I want to be run for mayor. Business will come, that's fantastic, but I'm not going to be giving any incentives as far as money or as far as land. If you have a good product, a good service, you come here, you compete, and you can stay. Now, some people don't believe that. They think that the government should be involved a little bit to try to help the businesses come or get them on their feet or increase the tax revenue to try to offset the personal property taxes. That's your vision and your philosophy. I don't think you're an evil person, but I just have a different view of the role of government.
Fred, do you mind if I double click on this for a second? Full transparency. I'm an EDC guy through and through. The process of municipal partnership at the Economic Development Corporation level. We've had Mike Kowski on. I don't know if you've listened to any of the previous episodes of the podcast. Most people haven't found us yet. We're still emerging.
I listened to part of your podcast with Fuller on the airport expansion.
Okay. Yeah. A lot of people that was like we've had 3,000 downloads of that episode.
That was a lightning rod.
Yeah. The role of EDC, it's to me, it's not just within the city of McKinney. It's when we look at how McKinney competes against other cities. PGA of America came to Frisco in large part because the EDC in Frisco and the folks over there recruited PGA of America. They were in Orlando before, and over the course of several years, Frisco won the rights, so to speak. They won over other cities, and PGA came. Now, there's 9 figures worth of tax abatements and other various incentive strategies that economic development folks can do to lure an organization to bring their business to Frisco. When you contemplate what that means, there's a championship golf course, I think 2 now. You have the PGA Championship, a major event coming to Frisco in 2027. the overall economic impact directly to the city resources, but the indirect economic impact of small business owners, hospitality, food and beverage and everything else. It's a very complicated thing to say that, we're not going to have any incentives or tax rebates or anything like that. I'd love to talk about this a little bit more.
Sure.
If you're not going to do any of the traditional EDC recruitment type efforts, how would you as mayor help McKinney compete well against its peer cities, not just in DFW, but across the nation? You look at like Orange, California, for instance, is a good analog for McKinney. They're bigger in population, but adjacent to a really large city.
Yes.
And Orange is a good analog for, the kind we compete against Orange. We compete against, a large suburb of Chicago. We compete against Jacksonville, Florida, for instance.
Yeah.
How would you as mayor, if you're not going to have growth, if you're not going to have progress that is intentionally acted upon by the city, because by you saying, we're not going to do it, it doesn't mean growth is not going to happen. It doesn't mean progress is not going to happen.
100%
but it's going to be
correct.
private sector.
Yes.
Entirely private sector with no input from the city if you have your way as mayor. I'd love to get your take on how McKinney competes against other cities in DFW, Arlington, whatever, but also competes against other cities to get these big projects that bring a lot of opportunity for folks to have something really nice, like the water park, like the Sunset Amphitheater, which I know you're also against.
Yes.
I'd love to get your take on that.
Sure. I think it's just the fundamental question is, do I want these things to come here? Because we're talking about you're bringing the amphitheater, you're bringing the water park, the Byron Nelson, you bring these things here. Let's break it down this way. I don't want this stuff because the short answer is that yes, it brings all the stuff you just mentioned, which I agree with. It'll bring everything you just said, but it will also increase property values, which will increase the overall tax burden. Because the property tax rate comes down, but everyone's still paying more property taxes. Why? Because the property values go up. And no one has the balls to come on here and tell you that the reason that is because the property values are either staying the same or they're going up. And if you want to pay less taxes, they have to stay the same or they have to come down. And you say that, and people just think you're crazy. But that's one of the reasons. So I agree with you. All that stuff will bring all the businesses, all the stuff you say. But most regular citizens are not business owners. In fact, if you look at the statistics now, I think they're saying like the top 10% isn't responsible for like 40% of the consumer spending now, just going around like keeping all the businesses open. Myself, I'm almost always ordering takeout and all that stuff. That's not normal. That's not a normal person.
Sure.
Now,
but those businesses create tens of thousands of jobs for folks, just regular white collar and blue collar folks that live in McKinney.
They do. They create jobs, but they create jobs for people who are not here right now. They create jobs to bring more people here, which will also create a density problem and will also increase property taxes with new amenities. So I understand what you're saying. My concern is the property tax rate. Now let's just say, we don't care about the property tax rate. Let's take the Byron Nelson, for example. It was CDC. They gave $1.6 million to Craig Ranch to fix up the water erosion issues that they have there.
Yep.
And that only covers like 9% of fixing it. The other 91% they're going to pay for them themselves. I would say just have them pay for all of it. Well, they were like, well, won't it like disincentivize them to have the tournament? Well, the prize money is $9.6 million. It's going to have to be $8 million. And I promise you the tournament will still happen. If that's your concern is just the money issue. But again, I'm going to go a step back. I don't want this here. And this is the issue, is that we fundamentally disagree. It's not like, and like I've said before, I don't think you're a bad or an evil person for having a different view that we need to bring these businesses and whatever. I'm just looking at it from the point that it will increase property values and it will increase our property tax burden.
Okay. That is a philosophical difference that's not going to be bridged, and neither one of us is going to convince the other. That's why these conversations are so interesting.
Yeah, of course.
Because you come at the issue from a completely tangential perspective. I hadn't really considered that. It all goes back to property taxes. So just so I'm clear.
By the way, what you're saying is also true. Growth's going to happen.
Yeah.
Growth will happen, but it's just not my role to promote the growth. Like when I say no growth, doesn't mean I'm going to get in there and like block the streets and not have them come. It just means I'm not going to be part of it.
I think my biggest concern about lack of strategic oversight, if EDC is not involved, if the mayor's office, if city manager's office, and city employees, 1,800 city employees that report to Paul Grimes, if they're not involved, the likelihood that we end up with a situation like Houston where there is
no zoning,
no strategy.
I'm not saying no zoning. I'm just saying government.
But I recognize that's an extreme example.
No, I'm for zoning. I'm for zoning. I'm just not for giving money to private companies to move in.
But when there's not strategic initiatives happening to court certain things, when market analysis isn't happening from folks that are in positions of authority with the city, and looking at what are we missing? What do we not have that would be very successful, like an eye surgeon, for instance? What do we not have? What are the citizens of McKinney not getting to take advantage of currently?
Well, I think that's the fundamental difference. Is I think the market will naturally work. Like I identified Frisco myself. That's a place I was lacking, so I came myself. I didn't have the equivalent of the EDC try to recruit me to come to Frisco. But that's just a philosophical difference of how the market works.
Yeah,
I believe in zoning. I do not want this place to turn into Houston. No way.
Yeah.
So with your objective of no growth, no progress, what, saying things like, safe and clean, like what are some tangible goals you have if and when you become mayor?
Great question.
City is safe and clean right now. I actually like a lot of things the city council did to get us to this point. I think the city is safe. Yeah, we have some crime. I was at the candidate orientation meeting. Every city is going to have a little bit of crime. I can go and help with the communities myself, bring attention. We can do neighborhood watches, to try to march on the areas that have issues. Someone close to me was like a few blocks down to run our doctor, said she saw someone out there that she thought was suspicious and didn't feel safe. But overall, the city is safe. The city is clean. And that's why I tell a lot of people is I want to keep McKinney the way it is now.
Okay, so but what will draw people to, because eventually our all of those people, all the personnel there, they're going to age out, they're going to retire. What's going to draw someone else here? As James had asked earlier,
I see what you're asking.
We've got
I see.
Over in Frisco, like the Star, when we moved here, that was field, and now that place is just churning out.
You're asking what will attract new residents to come here? Okay, yes.
So our city doesn't gentrify and just slowly die.
So what I would say to that is the same thing, safety and being clean. And I'll give you an example. I lived in Frisco before I lived in Frisco for like 2 years. I lived in Plano for a year and a half, and then I finally settled here in McKinney. When I came to McKinney, I'll tell you the honest truth. I picked McKinney because it was close to my job. It's like 10 minutes off of 121. It's safe, it's clean, and it's within my budget. I didn't come here because I knew there was going to be an amphitheater. I didn't come here because I knew there was going to be a water park. I didn't come here because I knew they were going to expand the airport. I didn't come here for any of these projects. I did consider the school system. I did, even though I don't have kids, because that's something we all have to consider.
Sure.
But the attraction wasn't like these big projects. And most people, that's how they operate. I know people who participate in the city council election don't. Like I said, it's like the 10% of people who are like really zoned into this stuff. But the 90% of people who just come here and don't vote in these elections, most regular people, they're just looking for a place that's affordable and is clean and safe. And that's really enough for them to really move here. And I wish I could slow the growth down, but I know it's not going to slow. And this is a regional issue. It's not just because if the McKinney doesn't have it, that people are not going to move here. They can have it in the other cities as well. Because this is a whole regional issue. Like, for example, we talk about like affordable housing and what should we do in McKinney? Well, the problem is that whatever you do in McKinney really won't matter because we're all connected. There's a lot of people who they work in like another city. They work in Frisco or they work in Richardson and then they come back to McKinney. So yeah, you can create all these new houses or whatever amenities you want, but there's no guarantee that person's really going to live in the city. So we're all really connected in a way.
I'd love to get your take on attainable housing. Attainable versus affordable. Affordable housing typically means some sort of subsidy, whether it's Section 8 or other government programs. Attainable housing is a different subject entirely. It is, and Fred and I were texting about this earlier with the organizers of the debate that's going to happen next Tuesday. We added a question on attainable housing to the docket for the debate on Tuesday. Everybody's going to get the emails about it, so you're just getting a little bit of a jump on your competitors. I'd love to get your take on it now. And I will be asking you, me or Fred, one of the other of us will be asking you this same question on Tuesday night. McKinney has an attainable housing program, a problem. Because when you look at the median income, and I don't have the data in front of me, I will on Tuesday. When you look at the median income of a household in McKinney against the average home price of a home in McKinney, you want to see 27 to 32% of your household income going to housing in some way. And we're like 40-something percent if you look at average home price, average median income. How in the world do you, as mayor, help fix the attainable housing problem? I'm not talking about the Section 8 apartment complex.
No, I understand.
I'm talking about the teacher that can't afford to buy a home, the entry-level police officer that can't afford to buy a home.
No, I understand.
How do you help fix it?
Stop bringing expensive projects here that will increase property values. People don't like hearing this stuff. But you want all the nice stuff. It's going to increase the property values.
Yeah.
And it's going to increase property taxes. And if you're a renter, it's going to get kicked down to you. I mean, I don't believe – I mean, at this point, everyone knows I'm like conservative Republican, but I'm not into like government intervention to give out subsidies. And you said like not subsidies or whatever, but
Sure.
I don't think it's the government's job to directly be like – I don't believe the government can control the prices of the houses. I just don't believe that. But what I do believe is that I can at least control the type of projects that come in here or not give money to bring it in here to jack up the property values, which will make it hard for everyone else.
Sure.
That's my answer to it. I'll be honest, some of the questions people ask me, there is no government solution. I just have to tell them that. The homeless issue is actually one of them. I've had this asked for me in the firefighters union. They're like, yeah, you know, we see homeless people on the east side. What do you suggest we do? And I'm like, well, I don't think there's a government solution because I've seen cities like Austin and LA who have even more government involvement and it's just exacerbated the problem and it hasn't fixed it. I'm not going to lie to you and say, like, if you make me mayor and give me the money, I'm going to fix it. I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
What I would suggest is that we together as a community, we get together, we actually go down and talk to the homeless and figure out who needs a job and how to get them back on their feet. And the firefighters told me, well, some of them just want to be homeless. That's just the lifestyle they choose. I'm like, I don't know what to tell you about that. I'm just hoping most of them are not like that and we can actually get them back on their feet. But that's going to require us. So when you ask me like attainable housing and all these things, like how do we fix it? I don't have a direct government solution or policy for it. All I can say is that I would stop the big projects from coming in, which will inevitably increase property values. And that's a small part of it because the other cities will still increase the property. They'll still bring those projects in, which it's a regional thing. But I can only do my part, which is try to control it here in McKinney.
And so with, you know, talking about that with bigger projects coming in, let's take the amphitheater, for example. That's going to create a lot of jobs for the people in the area. So while your stance is against the amphitheater, what do you say to the person who's a skilled laborer or manual laborer who needs a job like that? What do you say to them?
So when you make a project like that, a lot of those new jobs are not for people who are currently here. You know, our unemployment rate is actually not that bad in McKinney. So these jobs are going to be for new people coming in. My priority for mayor is for the people who are here right now, not for the ones who are looking for jobs in the future to come here. And I will tell them, like, listen, man, it's tough. Property taxes are high. This thing is going to increase the property values. Yeah, you'll have a job, but at the same time, you're going to come here and then you're going to have to compete with all the residents who are already coming here, and it's going to make the prices go higher. My priority is to McKinney first. I mean, that's just what it is.
So it all comes back to property taxes for you.
It's a big cost because it gets kicked down the road to rent, and it's a big chunk. Listen, this doesn't affect me. Like, I have to think of the regular resident. Like, I'm rich. I don't care about that. Like, it doesn't matter to me. I'm just saying what it is.
Yeah, no,
like,
I don't argue with you.
Yeah, and we can talk about the airport too. Because what time is it, by the way?
We've got about 5 minutes left.
Yeah, let's talk about the airport real quickly too, because I know you guys are very for the airport. And again, I've told people too, they make the expansion, I'm going to use it. I fly a lot, okay?
Yeah.
I fly a lot. But for the average resident, and I'm wondering, like, how is it going to benefit them? And it's going to come back to a lot of the arguments you guys make about, like, economic growth and business and whatever. And I agree with that. Like, I'm not like some of these people who are like, oh, the airport won't do that. I'm like, no, I think the airport will do that, but it won't increase the property value. So you need to keep that in mind. So what I would suggest is to increase DFW. And then they would say, well, it's not enough space. I mean, DFW has the second largest landmass in the country after Denver.
Yeah.
It has more runways than Atlanta. Atlanta only has one airport because Delta kills all the airports there. So it's definitely possible.
Yeah.
But this is a philosophical difference about, yeah, it will benefit me, but like, that's not 90% of the people who like live in the city. Like most people don't even fly off that often. Most people are just trying to like keep their head over water, worry about attainable housing. I mean, this is what most people care about.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting the clarity that this conversation has
Absolutely.
brought. Because for you, it really just comes back to property taxes and the implications of that for trickle down for renters and whatnot.
For everybody, yeah.
You know, in our business, we insure more than 30,000 investment properties. So, you know, the way that things impact landlords and the tenants of the landlords is something that, I mean, here at RiskWell, we're intimately familiar with. We have dozens of those conversations a week. So hearing your perspective and the way that your motto of, you know, no growth, no progress, your opposition to the airport and other major projects, and even the Byron Nelson, it's a very different way of looking at it. This has been a really educational conversation. So,
By the way, I don't think you're wrong for wanting the airport. Like,
Sure.
I always have to make sure, because people just always think like, oh, he's evil. He doesn't want the airport. Or he's evil. He's for the airport. I'm like, this is just a different vision of the city. You
Yeah.
elect someone who's for the airport, the city is going to be fine. You elect someone like me, the city is going to be fine. We're going to have a different vision. So this is not about like someone's trying to destroy the city with or without the airport.
well, in all fairness, the conversations of opposition to the airport, I mean, we're past that. The airport's happening.
That's
the
right.
expansion's happening. Contracts with airlines are literally being signed this month.
Well, my
So-
pledge is to try to stop it as much as I can. First thing I do if I get in is sit with the city attorney. I have to sit here. What contract did you sign with the airlines? What's the status on the Tiffy loan? Which is just $14 million that has to come with grants. Where are you guys with this stuff? So I'm just going to tell you what I'm going to do. So you need to make your choice, speaking directly into the camera when it comes
Yeah.
to this airport. So I tell you, I am going to do my very best to kill the airport. You very well may be right. It may be
Kill the
less
airport
than-
expansion.
Kill the airport expansion.
Let's
Yeah.
because
Yeah. No one's killing the airport.
Someone's going to soundbite that.
Go kill the
Yeah.
airport for my second term. No, I'm just kidding. But no, I mean, that's what I plan on doing, is to try to stop the expansion. You may very well be right. Maybe we're past that point, but I'm not going to sit here and be like, I can't do it. I can't do nothing.
Okay. Any
right.
final questions?
No, I mean, I sincerely hope that when this drops, that the people who actually tune in will take the time to share this with other people so that they can understand better just who is in the race. And it's not just a matter of what we typically do. You know, you actually touched on it earlier when you said, you know, that you are financially secure. So a lot of these things, you know, they don't really affect you. And we talked about it earlier. Why don't people turn up and vote?
Because they don't think it matters.
That's right. And
I think it's
so-
what you first said. They don't care.
Yeah.
I think that's really what it is. If real quick, like I remember in 2020 in Frisco, the presidential election, 73% turnout, November. Six months later, I was living in Frisco at the time, so I know these numbers. City council election in May, turnout 7%.
Mm-hmm.
Why? People don't care. I'm sure our friends on the other side of the aisle will say, well, you know, people lost their ID or they couldn't get a ride that day and all this other. No, I'm serious. They'll make up all sorts of reasons why the voter turnout was low. No, people don't care.
They don't care.
They don't care. So, like, you say that, you're like, oh my God, he said people don't care. Like, does he care about the people? Like, well, no, I do care about you, but I have to tell you the truth. Y'all don't care. If y'all cared, you would show up and vote in the city council election, early vote April 22nd, last day May 3rd.
I mean, he's not wrong.
No.
It is the most flabbergasting thing. It's like, how in the world do we have so few people? Like, it is the most quintessentially American thing.
They see the signs too, so they can't pretend like there was an
That's right.
election.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I had no idea.
I thought that was for special people who could only vote. No,
Oh, yeah.
y'all can vote. Everyone can vote.
Now, just to wrap this thing up and put a bow on top, and you know what? I love that you're looking right at the camera like a good politician. I never look right into the camera. I'll do the same thing. Matt Rostami is a lot more than just a quippy thing on social media. You know, your ideas are controversial. They're different, but they're very well articulated in this episode. I think you've done a great job of explaining your position and why you feel the way you do. And that's really all I can ask for from a podcast episode, right?
I appreciate that. And I'm a little disappointed, Gene. I thought you were going to attack me. I thought we were going to get into it, but you've been very nice, very professional. Really changed the way I see you. I really appreciate the platform. But would have been fun to like go at it for more of the views. But, you know, it was a very respectful conversation. So I really appreciate it.
Well, you know, you can feel free on your next episode to resurrect the straw man. You know.
Yeah, we try to keep it interesting.
Oh my gosh, man! As a content creator, I mean,
I sit in there and think like, what can I do next to try to get people to talk about this?
I can tell that you're being satirical, that you're intending to be obnoxious, and it makes it so much more interesting.
I do what I can.
Like you're just poking people, because there's an element of truth, there's an element of you communicating your viewpoint and whatnot, but man, like it's so funny.
But that's what you think. Some people don't. So I would tell them, just lighten up, guys.
Okay, here's the thing. Like, I get what you're doing. Like, the shtick, it's not a mystery to me. I totally get what you're doing. It's smart. It's extremely controversial.
Risky.
It's very risky.
A lot of people are turned off by it
100%.
because they're purist. They're serious when it comes to their politics.
Very, very much so. Yes.
So I do have a question though.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, so you have been going through your foreign language series, let's say, all right? And
where are you going with this?
I mean,
I'm scared.
Those are the worst videos to film.
Oh my
Those
gosh.
are tough.
Bro, how many times did you practice your Spanish video? Because
Spanish wasn't that bad. Urdu was the toughest one for me.
I haven't heard the Urdu one.
Because I don't speak it. That's the problem. The other ones I speak, like I speak Hebrew, I speak Arabic, I speak Turkish. Like that stuff.
I caught your Hebrew one the other day, and I was like, man, that's really
I got to
good.
go back and watch the other.
Yeah.
That I can do.
But let's so I'm just going to put it out there that you've already said, that your wife is Mexican.
Yes.
Correct. And she did help you with your Spanish.
A little bit, yeah.
Okay, so did you share with
Spanish
her?
was good.
Did you share with her the first part of that video where you kind of went into character, and was she okay with that?
Oh yeah, I share with her
Really?
father-in-law and everybody. Oh, they love that stuff. They're like Walmart and all.
Yeah, I wasn't going to say it until you said it, but when you said Walmart, yeah, that's right. Yeah,
Home Depot.
Home Depot. Yeah, no. Like a lot of them thought it was hilarious. I think a lot of people who were like upset about it is because here's the thing. Like a lot of my videos, if you look at it, there's always like a little subtle joke and nod to each one. But then I kind of switch into the language, and I make sure you speak that language right. So that way the people watching it know, like, okay, this guy is not just trolling us. Like, he really understands.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
And you have to do it like that.
Yeah.
You can't just be like, oh, I think Mexicans sound like this. That's not cool. Like,
No.
you really have to show, like, hey, guys, listen, it's a joke. I kind of understand where you guys are. I'm speaking your language. I care about you.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important.
Yeah, and that was my thing, is that, I said it earlier, is that you have a shock value / entertainment value, but you bring the information. If people will just hold on rather than just react. And for me, I didn't wake up one day and go, oh my goodness, I'm Filipino. Right? It wasn't a shocker to me. I've always been Filipino. I've always been Asian. And so,
Oh man.
I remember, like, some people will like make an Asian joke or whatever, and some people will laugh, and if I'm around, other people will gasp, and they'll look at me like, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry.
They're checking with you first, see if it's okay to laugh.
And that's my thing. It's like, oh my goodness, I'm Asian. Like, how dare you? And I'm like, my thing is,
It's I call it vicarious offense.
yes,
Man.
yes,
Where they're not offended, but they think you might be offended, so they're offended for you.
they're offended for
Exactly.
you, and I'm like,
That's exactly
I
what
don't
it is.
know.
I found it so interesting on that video because I thought it was funny, but I've seen those videos where they have an actual like Mexican construction guy like out in front of Home Depot. Like those videos are clips, and they're put
Right.
together for like Walmart or whatever.
That's honestly where I got the idea from.
Yeah,
to be honest with you.
because I've seen those videos
Yes.
before, and I go through and I look to the comments where you're just getting murdered in the comments,
yes.
and I'm just like, white lady, white lady, white lady, white lady.
Yeah,
white
it's almost some
lady.
Hispanics. Like, there was some Hispanic guys who were like, yeah, we think this is funny.
I saw that, and the two or three of the people that said, I don't know what you guys are talking about. This is hilarious. One of them was like Maria Martinez or whatever. I'm just like, well, the Mexican girl laughed, and all these. It's such a complicated, like Fred said, it's such a risky play.
It's very delicate when you make jokes on race. Like you
Yeah.
have to understand.
Yeah.
Like the thing is, it has to be funny. Like if it's not funny, it's not going to be acceptable.
Yeah.
And that's really my thing when it comes to jokes about race. Like if it's funny, cool. But some jokes are not funny. They're like mean spirited.
Yeah.
And they're very predictable. Like if you say something like, oh, like I think like black people don't want to work or something like that. Like as a black person myself, I'm kind of like, well, I've heard that trope like a million times. Like give me something like unpredictable or interesting.
Yeah.
That's not funny jokes when it comes to like racial issues at all. But like if you can actually like connect and like make it surprising, I think those are acceptable as long as they're funny.
Yeah, well, like I said, you know, I think you are beginning to really craft that message better, and really tighten up the humor. So, you know, and we tell people all the time, you know, we're not telling you who to vote for or any of these things. We are just here celebrating what makes us unique by nature and making sure that we share as much information as possible about our community.
Appreciate it.
I love that we were successful in being hospitable and kind and making you feel welcome. Because I knew, just from your comments, I knew that you were coming in here expecting a fight. And
100%.
Yeah.
I have a little story I posted right before. I haven't posted it yet, right before coming in. I'm like, we'll see what happens, guys, if I get killed.
No, listen, my wife's saying you should wear the shirt with the black and the white stripes so you can referee this. And the fact that I normally sit here, you know, I'd be blowing a whistle and throwing
flags. As soon as I saw him when I walked, I'm like, man, this guy's tall. I'm screwed if we get into a fight.
We have a group chat for just Fred and I and our wives. And I don't mind saying this because the episode went how I hoped it would. Last night at 8 o'clock, I said to the group chat, Matt Rostami, 2 words for tomorrow: charm, offensive. I want him leaving our studio saying, man, those guys are so freaking nice.
You succeeded. You succeeded. No, you did. I appreciate it.
It's like anytime we have the opportunity to juke on someone's expectations in a good way, Fred and I are always going to take that opportunity.
No, I really appreciate having you guys. Thank you.
No, it's been phenomenal. I mean, just as an aside, thinking about you and your wife, like you said, you guys are in the process of trying to make a family and all of that. Thinking about your kid, whoever it is, you know, son or daughter, whatever it happens to be, that kid is going to have a very interesting upbringing with a dad who's Persian and black heritage and a mom who's Mexican and Hispanic, Latina heritage. Like that kid is going to be an international child from the word go.
He's going to make a fine American. I'll tell you that. He'll make a
it's
fine
the
American.
definition of American, baby. It's the melting pot of the world.
Absolutely.
I love it.
Well, thanks for having me, guys. Really appreciate it.
I know you got to go, folks. This is really, really, really important. If you don't get anything else from this episode, I think it's going to drop before April 2nd. If you're not registered to vote, get registered to vote. It's voting registration runs through April. It's April 3rd, by the way. April 3rd. Election day is May 3rd. It's a Saturday in McKinney, across the state, actually. Saturday, May 3rd is election day. Early voting starts, what is it, Monday, April 22nd, I think is when it starts?
April 22nd. Yeah.
Okay, April 22nd. Get your butt to the polls, people. I'm not kidding. We're out of time. He's got to get back to work, and we got something else.
Yep.
Matt Rostami, thanks for a great episode, man. Talk to you later.
Appreciate it. Thank you.